A 150-car train was carrying a huge amount of toxic chemicals when it derailed near the town of East Palestine in Ohio. That included chemicals like vinyl chloride, which is linked to cancer, and phosgene, which was actually used as a chemical weapon in World War I. To avoid an explosion, authorities decided to do a controlled release of these chemicals, which required an evacuation of over 5,000 residents due to the potential for water and air contamination. Not everyone was able to leave, and now some residents say they're feeling sick. The EPA found that while the air quality was safe, small amounts of butyl acrylate were detected in the Ohio River Basin, which is home to some 25 million people. This has raised a lot of questions about the safety of transporting hazardous materials on trains, especially ones going through communities, with some local leaders calling on President Biden to take action before things get worse.
Yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy, Seethruthescript here, back with another video, and as you can already tell, we're going to talk about what's going on in East Palestine, Ohio. To give you a super quick background story of the town, it was originally called Mechanicsburg, only to be changed in 1836 to Palestine. They later added the prefix East to differentiate between other towns with the similar name at the time. The name derives from biblical influences, as do many other towns in the United States. Residents refer to it now as Palestine. However, it's very likely that the early settlers referred to it as Palestine. But with that said, let me go back to the story with a clip circulating around the web showing nearby waterways with signs of contamination.
So, something I just discovered is that if you scrape the creek bed, it's like chemical is coming out of the ground. Can you come here and let me just show this to people. I don't know if you're going to see this on the camera, but watch this. Just see that chemical pop out of the creek. This is disgusting. And the fact that we have not cleaned up the train crash, the fact that these chemicals are still seeping in the ground is an insult to the people who live in East Palestine. Do not forget these people. We got to keep applying pressure. That's how we're going to fix this problem. Thank you.
Wow.
Look at all that.
Look at it.
It's all in the bottom of the creek bed.
I mean, as you can see from these clips, this small town with just under 5,000 residents has been hit pretty hard by this situation, with residents reporting that they're experiencing headaches, sore throats, burning eyes, even dead pets, chickens, and thousands of fish corpses in nearby waterways. East Palestine has a considerable amount of waterways that connect to the Ohio River, which is the source of drinking water for more than 5 million people. More than 25 million people, almost 10% of the US population, live in the Ohio River Basin. In the city of Cincinnati, the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks officials stated, out of an abundance of caution, they will be shutting off the Ohio River intake ahead of the anticipated arrival of the last detectable chemical concentration in the river. Okay, but let's go back to August of 2022 for a second and check out a film by the name of White Noise, based off the 1985 novel by American writer Don DeLillo. Viewers had noticed that the plot of the film White Noise had an uncanny resemblance to what had actually happened in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, the plot of the film concerns a train crash in Cleveland, Ohio, which releases a huge cloud of toxic chemicals into the air, referred to somewhat euphemistically as the airborne toxic event, forcing residents to evacuate. A quick side note, from the release of the film White Noise on August 31st, 2022 to the spill in East Palestine, Ohio, was a span of 22 weeks and 3 days apart. This will make tons of sense as I go along, so just keep that in mind. But wait, there's more. East Palestine, Ohio resident Ben Ratner was excited when he landed a gig as an extra in a Netflix movie about a toxic disaster in October 2021. But now the 37-year-old father of 4 who lives in East Palestine, Ohio, less than a mile from the site of the train derailment that led to a massive toxic chemical spill and forced residents to evacuate, is living out a real-life version of the movie's plot that's continuing to unfold. Talk about art imitating life, Ratner, who plays an evacuee in the film, said. I mean, really, like, this just screams predictive programming right in front of our faces. Now, upon watching the film, at one point around 40 minutes in, they show one of the kids going up to his room to grab a set of binoculars. And when they did this, they slowly panned into the binoculars, and as he picks them up, behind the binoculars is a set of books with very eerie titles, which I'll share here. So first you got Not of This World, which is a book about extraterrestrial beings and more. Then another book titled The Occult, A History, written by Colin Wilson in 1971. This talks about Aleister Crowley, Kabbalah, and primitive magic. And then there was the other book that you can visibly at least see the title, released in the late 1970s, titled The Supernatural series, Witches and Witchcraft. So let's do a quick recap. Just before the massive environmental disaster caused by a derailed train in Ohio, leading to a chemical spill and clouds of toxic smoke to occur, there was the film titled White Noise, being made sometime in 2021, set to release in the summer of 2022, where the plot of the film is not only based in the same state, but also forecasted the same event that happened on February 3rd in East Palestine, Ohio. And on top of that, one of the extras in the film is actually a resident of East Palestine. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. Oh, and to make matters worse, there have been several other train derailments since the one in Ohio. Like, I'm not saying that these things don't happen, but the timing is awfully strange. Plus, these trains carried hazardous materials likely to destroy or at least greatly impact the locals' land. It's worth mentioning, Ohio ranks first nationally in the production of Swiss cheese, second in egg production, and third in tomatoes and pumpkins. There are about 75,000 farms in Ohio. Nearly 90% of those farms are run by families or individuals. But don't forget that the demonic Bill Gates is buying acres of farmland around the United States, all while investing in things like Beyond Meat, only to quickly sell off his shares in that though after the stocks have plummeted. Gates is also invested in Hampton Creek Foods, a startup company working on plant protein-based egg substitutes. I mean, you could say it's a conspiracy, but at this point, one would only be fooling themselves to ignore what's really going on here. Also, the World Economic Forum, run by Jesuit-educated and trained Klaus Schwab, has the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in a chokehold, and those following their plans know they envision a world where we own nothing and we eat how they want us to eat, which means going meatless and much more. But to achieve this goal, they need to heavily disrupt our current food supply chains by any means necessary. And for those unfamiliar with the Jesuits, I've read their oath before, but just know they operate on the philosophy that as long as the ends justify the means, then they shall proceed. Now, before I get into the numbers and symbolism behind this East Palestine train derailment, I want to quickly remind you, the viewers, of a TV series Amazon Prime released back in 2020, which was titled Utopia. It was a remake of a 2014 UK series. This show is about a group of young adults who meet online, all sharing a deep passion for a comic book that turns out to have clues to a deep state organization plot to fake a pandemic, to ultimately vaccinate the entire country, without them ever knowing that the vaccine was meant to sterilize them. Oddly enough, this series hit Amazon streaming services on September 25th of 2020, which means they obviously had this in production before the pandemic. And for those that haven't seen this series, it's truly riddled with predictive programming. There are scenes where the public is demanding a cure for the virus, just like the masses did during COVID-19. There is also a scene where two twins are test bait for the vaccine, and the one who takes it ends up dying. So to avoid panicking the public, they deceive them by having the other twin come out and speak on the dead one's behalf, only to tell the people that the supposed cure is quote-unquote safe. I mean, there's a lot to to unpack there, so I highly recommend checking it out for yourself. And yes, because I know someone's thinking it, the film Contagion is yet another clear example of predictive programming. We've also seen films and TV shows foreshadow the destruction of the World Trade Center before its controlled collapse in 2001. Now, someone watching this video is probably thinking, well, why? Like, why would they do these things to us and foreshadow a major event in the films and TV before we experience it in real life? Well, many believe this goes back to the Hindu and Buddhist concept of karmic retribution, essentially to avoid punishment in the form of bad karma for their wicked plots and agendas against humanity. They essentially get us to witness and willfully consume our own demise through what seems to be fictional film. This way, when it ends up happening in the real world, it's like we've already been warned. But by them doing this, it essentially rids them of any bad karma, because in a way, despite it not being so direct, they did warn us. And yes, despite how evil these people are, they do still understand the concept of good and evil, of course. Just think about it. We're the ones buying the tickets to the films or paying for the streaming services. We're the ones choosing to consume these films and TV shows. In turn, we have subjected ourselves to their black magic through the forms of spell casting, which in our time is really just broadcasting. Alright, but with all that said, let's talk some numbers. So the first thing that I noticed in relation to the train derailment was that East Palestine, Ohio, chemical spill, and Norfolk Southern all hold the value of 76. This number is going to be very important as we go along. And for those that don't know, Norfolk Southern is the railway company responsible for this incident. Now, also notice that Norfolk Southern Corporation, the full name of the company, equals 139 in the reduction cipher. 139 is the 34th prime number. This matters because the derailment went down on the 34th day of the year. Next, you can see Ohio, derailment, and East Palestine all equal 47. This number holds much occultic significance from the 47th problem of a Euclid down to its relevance within gematria. Now notice how from the governor of Ohio's 76 to this disaster is a span of 29 days apart, and notice that Ohio equals 29 in the reduction cipher. And just know that they always had the governor numerically connected to the ritual when a major event happens in their state, whether that be a mass shooting or an environmental disaster. But of course, there's always more. Now, what are the odds that the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWayne, is currently 76 years old when this event happens? Again, as mentioned earlier, all of these words/names equal 76. But of course, this is also numerically tied to the President of the United States. As you could see, from Biden's 80th to this environmental disaster is a span of 76 days apart. Now here's where we tie in that symbolism. 2023 is what many believe to be the year of Skull and Bones Society, a secret society formed at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut in 1832. Three notable bonesmen that have ascended after graduation into prominent positions of power range from William Howard Taft, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush, all former US presidents. This secret society's emblem is a skull and crossbones with the number 322 beneath it. First, notice how the number 322 reversed reads as 223, and we are currently in the year 2023. Using the rules of numerology, you are left with 223. I wanted to share with you guys those numerical connections to also provide more context to the symbolism I'm about to show. Notice the trains carried hazardous materials, in other words, toxic chemicals. Well, just think about how the hazard symbol is a skull and crossbones, and how this event happened during the 223 year, or the 322 year. Note, skull and crossbones equals 223. And remember the film White Noise about a train derailment causing an airborne toxic cloud in Ohio came out 22 months and 3 days before the real event in East Palestine. But if that didn't convince you, check out East Palestine's motto, which is where you want to be. Notice that phrase equals 76, just like Skull and Crossbones, Chemical Spill, East Palestine, Ohio, and Norfolk Southern. A few more quick things that I want to share is that this event is being referred to as one of the most devastating environmental disasters in the United States history. Note the phrase environmental disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, where it went down, both equal 95 in the reduction ciphers. Lastly, for the number side of things, notice the current CEO of Norfolk Southern Corporation goes by the name Alan H. Shaw. Note his name holds the value of 33 alongside the phrase Ohio train derailment, equating to 303, like the number 33. But what are the odds that East Palestine's area code is also 330, like the number 33? Now, to me, this event just screams false flag. For those unaware of what that means, according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it states a hostile or harmful action, such as an attack, that is designed to look like it was perpetrated by someone other than the person or group responsible for it. I mean, is it really that far-fetched to think that the CEO was aware that a major event like this would be happening under his wing alongside the governor of Ohio and the president, all in a plot to destroy crucial land that contributes greatly to the US's food supply?
You never know. No.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but when this whole disaster happened, I couldn't help but think about all those strange comments I kept seeing all over social media with things like only in Ohio, or down in Ohio, or even normal day in Ohio. Like, there was just all these Ohio like comments and people were just roasting on Ohio. So according to this article from knowyourmeme.com, the meme's origin started in 2016 with someone posting to Tumblr an image of a digital bus screen stating Ohio will be eliminated. Beyond that point, other strange yet viral moments kept randomly happening in Ohio, such as the death of Harambe, the gorilla at the Cincinnati Zoo, and the list goes on and on. However, I do find it to be pretty weird that this meme kinda seems to have revived itself before this massive environmental disaster that went down in the state of Ohio. Again, I'll leave it up to y'all. Was this event a planned and orchestrated attack using elements of black magic to complete it? Or are we, the conspiracy theorists, simply tripping and looking too deep into it, as the NPCs like to say? But anyways, y'all, that's all I got for this video. I do want to say that this is truly unfortunate for the residents of East Palestine and the surrounding areas, as for all we know, they could potentially end up suffering from lifelong health consequences due to the contamination. So please, just send them your positive energy, because we've seen how bad these things can get for residents when an environmental disaster occurs, like we saw in 2014 in Flint, Michigan, as the residents are still suffering from that event. So hopefully we don't see something like this happen again in East Palestine. Oh, and also, ain't it messed up how just 2 days after Russia invaded Ukraine, the US was quick to send $350 million in military aid. However, when a disaster strikes on American soil, the government takes its sweet time to address it, taking FEMA about 2 weeks to provide any assistance. Again, it's like the leaders of this country are being told to let it burn and fall to the ground. Remember, the World Economic Forum had predicted that by 2030, the US won't be the world's leading superpower. From an incompetent government to increasing poverty and an increasing gap between the rich and poor, declining infrastructure, and increased crime, it seems like the US might reach this damning point right on schedule. But guys, remember to stay strong and vigilant, speak up, and don't let this agenda pan out how they want it to. And with all that said, please don't forget to beat the hell out of that like button and drop your boy a comment. Let me know what I missed. Drop some other gems for people in the comments. Share the video. And most importantly, subscribe, man. Remember, all of those things are free to do. It's been your boy Script, and I'm out of here. Peace. 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 Peace.